Will Big Ben bong for Brexit? Surprisingly, not the hardest phrase I'll have to try and read in this video. This might seem like a super light topic, and the perfect weekend video after a week full of content, but it's not just a light topic. Actually, it got pretty contentious, was discussed in the House of Commons, and could show us how serious the government is about unifying the country post-Brexit. So in this video, we'll discuss the Big Ben related controversy, what will happen on Brexit Day, and what this actually means for the UK. Before we dive in, just a reminder that while there are 13 days left until Brexit Day, there are also 13 days left on our free shipping promotion. If you want free shipping on all of our Countries with Shoes pin badges, then you have only 13 days left to use the code FREESHIPPING. The link's down below. So at 11 PM GMT on the 31st of January 2020, the UK is set to leave the EU. After decades of campaigning and years of controversy, the day will have finally come. For supporters of Brexit, this is surely a moment to celebrate, a culmination of years of effort. As such, it's unsurprising that Farage is holding a party to celebrate in Parliament Square. It's also fairly unsurprising that some are discussing if Big Ben will chime at 11 PM to signify the UK leaving the EU. After all, Big Ben ringing is a true iconic symbol in the UK, used to celebrate, mourn and signify large events in the British calendar. And regardless of your position on the Brexit debate, it's hard to argue that this isn't a major political moment. This is a huge moment in the history of Britain, and it's because of that, some argue that Big Ben should ring. The problem for those in favour of the bell ringing is that the whole tower is currently undergoing a serious restoration effort, so seeing the tower, let alone sounding it, is hard at the moment. This means that according to Johnson, it would cost £500,000 to make the bell ring in order to call in Brexit Day. This is obviously a staggering amount of money for 11 bell rings. 11 chimes, which would take place at 11 PM on a Friday night, and could only be heard by a tiny percentage of the population. I'm not going to go into too much detail, but essentially the cost is a combination of £120,000, which will be put towards building a temporary floor in order to make the strike of the bell possible, as well as the costs associated with the 3 to 4 week delay to the restoration process that the installation of the floor would cause. It's a lot of taxpayers' money being spent on a bell ringing, no matter how significant the event it's marking is. Johnson discussed this very issue of expense in an interview with BBC Breakfast on Tuesday.
Well, the bongs,
January the
the bongs cost £500,000 because
they're very costly bongs.
Yeah, but we're working up a plan so that people can bung a bob for a Big Ben bong because there are some people who want to
bung.
I haven't quite worked it out. But
I love the fact you're developing policy live on television.
There you heard Johnson mention the so-called bung a bob for the Big Ben bong campaign. I'm not sure how much sense that absolutely impossible to say phrase will make to our international viewers, but if you look past the alliteration, basically the idea is to crowdfund the money. The government is proposing that those who are super amped for Brexit could just bung in a bob towards a central fund that would pay to make Big Ben bong. Simple, right? Well, not exactly, because later in the same day as that interview, the Prime Minister's spokesman announced that there was no official campaign to crowdfund Big Ben's bongs. Despite this, a number of campaigns were started, and at the time of writing, one of those crowdfunding efforts has raised in excess of £225,000, with 11,000 supporters. And Leader of the House of Commons, Jacob Rees-Mogg, also commented on the debate, seemingly encouraging people to donate.
Regard to bunging a bob for Big Ben bongs, one shouldn't look gift horses in the mouth, and that if people wish to pay for things, I think that should be considered as part of their public spiritedness, rather than feeling that everything should always fall on the hard-pressed taxpayer.
However, despite the enthusiasm from some Brexit supporters and Mogg, the government has been keen to distance themselves from the campaign, likely for two major reasons: the practicalities and the optics. Not only is this expensive, but Big Ben is also the responsibility of the House of Commons Commission. This means that unless the government were to pass a law requiring its chimes, something the government seems unwilling to do, the Commission could simply refuse to comply. In fact, the Commission recently stated that the House of Commons has a well-established means of voting through the expenditure required to allow it to function. Any novel form of funding would need to be consistent with principles of propriety and the oversight of public expenditure. The other reason is the optics of this situation. Despite his position on Brexit and his actions around the whole issue, Johnson has spent a lot of his time post-re-election emphasising that he wants to reunify the country. While some will want to celebrate their hard work, and while it is a huge historic moment, spending £500,000 to make Big Ben Bong to mark Brexit could be seen as a very provocative move if Johnson went ahead with it, completely running against his message of reunification. Around the 31st, you can expect to hear a lot of talk about the success of the Brexit campaign and the UK's new sovereignty and freedom, but you're also likely to hear the government attempting to use a conciliatory tone to bring the country back together in the aftermath of Brexit. And this is a tone which would be somewhat undermined if it was being shouted over Big Ben's £500,000 chimes. To be updated on the more serious aspects of Brexit and to learn more about the whole situation, be sure to subscribe to our channel. Will Big Ben if Bunger Bob for the Big Ben Bong Bunger Bob to make Big Ben for the so-called Bunger Bob for the Big Ben Bong campaign. Sorry.